Welcome into Off Air with Amy. I'm Amy Wood. So glad you're with us this week because I've got a couple of important things to get to. A lot of people paid attention to the Chuck Wright guilty plea. I'm bringing back in our federal prosecutor to talk about the sentencing guidelines, really walk us through the process, what they're going to be considering, what that report they're building right now is going to include, and what a potential sentence might look like for the former sheriff of Spartanburg County. We're also going to lighten things up today. And before we go, we're going to talk about Santa Shop because if you can believe it, it's coming up. Tickets are being sold right now, and it is a really fun time to enjoy with your family. Take your daughters, go with some girlfriends. I mean, it is a great shopping experience. They have the Christmas music playing. They have decor everywhere, gift ideas. I'm going to go for the gift ideas because I'm running out of ideas, and I'm sure you are too. So what does a former federal prosecutor who knows this federal sentencing guideline, he also is familiar with the judge in this case, what does he anticipate might happen in terms of a sentence for the former sheriff of Spartanburg County? Let's find out. So we've got Todd Hagens back with us, a former federal prosecutor who's familiar with the plea deal that Chuck Wright agreed to, several weeks back. And now that day has come, Todd, where he entered the guilty plea, and now we have to await sentencing. What's your read on the situation, especially since we had that new development that happened last night where the state has announced they're not going after charges. They said their charges would be duplicating what the feds are doing, and they're going to leave it to the feds.
Yeah, and briefly on that, again, being a federal prosecutor, I have done some state work, but being a federal prosecutor, there's normally people get confused thinking that there's something called double jeopardy when it applies, but that just means the state or the feds can't go against you twice. So technically, double jeopardy doesn't apply here. However, generally in situations like this, you're much more likely to get jail time in the federal system than you are in the state.
Okay.
Quite frankly, in the state system, he might have ended up with a better plea deal, quite frankly. So what the state looks at that and they say, listen, we know he's likely going to get jail time, particularly based on the amount of loss that I saw reported earlier by your station today. So if he's going to do that time, there's no need to pay for him to sit in the state system or get probation in the state system. So that's generally why they would have done that. And again, working from the federal side, normally we would only take a case if the state had already prosecuted, if they had gotten a probation deal when it looked like they would have gotten some significant time. So it's normal. I know that's always a question from everybody when they see something like that. They think it's a sweetheart deal, but I can assure you, if this was just a random person on the street, they would have gotten the same deal as the former sheriff has.
Yeah, the comment sections have been going crazy with people speculating about a million different reasons why the state might not have prosecuted, including a lot of people looking toward, Trey Gowdy's a very popular and well-known Republican, has connections to the Trump administration. So everybody is like, wow, is he going to get a pardon? Which those
Right.
kind of things, nobody knows that's going to happen until they happen, right?
Yeah, and I was telling you a little earlier, I am a Republican from birth. My dad was a Reagan Democrat, but I think I told you when you broached that subject, any other president that we would have had since I've been alive, I said there's no way a president would touch a pardon in a situation like this. Public corruption, a sheriff. I will say, based on his track record from his previous term, the one area it looks like Trump has a particular interest in pardoning people across the spectrum, no matter their station of life, their color, is people that appear to be in the system because due to a drug addiction.
Hmm.
If you look back, and I once had the distinction of being the only federal prosecutor, I think 6 commutations by Obama of former people I'd prosecuted. So that when they started the First Steps Act, or the first looking at way of kind of redoing the drug sentencing guidelines,
Hmm.
that was a big push. And it not only was it an Obama thing, but it really transitioned into Trump's first administration. A lot of that you saw with disparity of crack guidelines versus powder cocaine guidelines really got cleaned up there. And again, I wouldn't bet on it. But I also probably wouldn't take the bet on whether he would pardon him or not.
Interesting. Okay. Well, and I'm just bringing that up because it has been brought up in the comments a lot. Let's talk about you are familiar with sentencing guidelines, and now you've gotten even more information about, the losses, the sort of official case here.
Right.
So, what do you read on what the parameter the judge is going to be looking at? Like what kind of time potentially could he face?
Yeah. So again, in the federal system, you have about a 2-3 inch thick manual that's called the United States Sentencing Guidelines. And what those really do, they go, unlike a state system, you'll actually go, the former sheriff will go in front of a probation agent. They'll actually write a pre-sentencing report that the judge will follow. And with it being Judge Kane, I can almost assure you he's going to go by the guidelines. And so what they look at is criminal history. Have they been in trouble before with the law? Obviously, the sheriff hasn't. This is a first-time offense. So he'll be what's categorized as a Category 1 level offender. So that's somebody who's no criminal history. What's really going to drive his sentence is the amount of loss. And, I was thinking the last time we talked that the loss had not been settled yet, but I thought maybe naively, like how much could he have possibly stolen? But it seems like it was quite a larger amount from the reports I'm seeing. So I think when you look at his guidelines, he's probably facing right now about a 20 to 24 month sentence. I note what I found was curious today is that he was released without on a, basically a PR bond, and is being mandated to undergo drug treatment. And there was also notice at the change of plea hearing about a heart attack. So there's some health issues there. I think what his attorneys are setting up is if he does go to jail, which I think is likely, is that he's going to be sent up to a place like Butner, which is a federal medical complex. Bernie Madoff was there. A lot of federal prisoners at end of life or that need critical care end up there. And I think with the recent heart issues, his attorneys are trying to set him up to, if he serves time, to be at that. Not that, to dispel the idea there's a Club Fed out there. There's really not
People
federal
were
prisons
saying
with,
that, yeah.
yeah, there's no federal prisons with tennis courts, but there are definitely different levels to be at. And if you're going to be in a federal prison, that's one of the better locations to be, quite frankly, not only because of his addiction, because of his health problems.
And so, the time period and the timing of sentencing, we talked a little bit about that last time. That his attorneys and the way it's all worked out in the system, it's kind of worked out that he potentially may not be sentenced till after the holidays. Is that
Yeah, I
probable?
think it's very high probability that he's not going to be sentenced. It's interesting. Normally, they'll announce a date to kind
Hmm.
of give everybody a marker to look forward to. It is getting into November. I can tell you, much like any other part of government, everything slows down during the holidays, and it's just because, if nothing else, people are taking time off, and so they
Sure.
might be out of office for a week and they're not
Right.
writing a report. So I think generally this is going to be after Christmas time. And if you look at that sentencing guidelines, he's looking at maybe 20 to 24 months. But if his defense attorneys, and he has an exceptional team, if they can get the judge to what's called deviate from the sentencing guidelines by even 1 or 2 levels, it interesting puts him in the 12-month to 18-month span, which a judge could then either, like I think I said last time, is give him a year and a day. And what that basically sets up, because if he behaves during that year, he would actually only serve about 10 months.
Hmm.
So there is an outside possibility he could be sentenced after the holidays and be back home before Thanksgiving next year.
Interesting. And again, then it could go the 24 months or something longer.
Right, exactly.
And again, it's all up to the judge. It's the
It
judge's
is.
call.
It is. And the thing in the federal sentencing guidelines, I always enjoyed it as a federal practitioner because you knew you could tell a defendant with reasonable certainty, this is what we're looking at. We might argue for the higher end of that. Your lawyer will argue for the lower end, but the judge is going to sentence somewhere in that. It's changed somewhat over the last 15 years, but most judges, particularly in South Carolina, stick with that guideline range. So I would expect if he ends in that 20-month or so guideline range, Judge Kane will give him that sentence. And I think no matter what, he's looking at prison time.
Right. What is your take on this whole way that the case is kind of unfolding at this point? Very typical. Any unusual parts that you see?
The unusual thing is, and I went back over my notes, one of my side hobbies, if you could call it that, and I think I'd mentioned this, was looking at the number of law enforcement, particularly sheriffs, who've gone to prison or been indicted over the last 15 or so years. The atypical thing about this to me, is that this was a sheriff that did the wrong thing and knew he was caught, and he didn't fight about it. He didn't delay the process, which for sheriffs is pretty unusual. It's because they're trusted by their community. They have a lot of respect and power in their community. And some of the most difficult things a defendant has is turning to the people who love him the most and admit to doing wrong. So I do think in the sheriff's favor is that he came forward and said, "You got me. I'm going to plead out." And so that's the only, I'd say not usual. I wouldn't say unusual, but that's one of the things that you normally don't have. And, quite frankly, they had the goods on him. One of the things about when I was a federal prosecutor is when we indicted you, there's such a high level of people pleading out was because the conviction rate's so high.
Sure.
Local departments don't have the resources the FBI or the DEA has. I mean, they can spend a lot of time looking into your life and know everything about you. So when the feds flop down a booklet of evidence on you, you pretty know what's going to happen, and then it's a negotiation about what you can give up or what's going to happen.
Got it. So they said, they don't have a date. I think one of the attorneys said the window might be 90 days ish before they get the report. And let's revisit that too. The report that they're doing right now, they're considering what?
Yeah, so they do is a comprehensive report. They is protected by the court, or I would be able to show you some of them, but they are a thorough biography of the person, not only looking at how they grew up, down to what their current situation is, family support, down to criminal history. If you had somebody with a long criminal history, it describes every crime they've been alleged to have been involved in. Because the whole purpose is to give the sentencing judge a complete history of the person that's before them. You can often hear somebody stand before you and admit to something. But if you don't know this is their 14th time admitting to it or not, you might get a little bit hoodwinked in there. So it's a very comprehensive report. It's going to go over any mental issues, and I don't think there has been any alleged here other than addiction, any mental issues, health issues. So again, that'll come up related to his heart issues. Again, there's not going to be a lot of criminal conduct to talk about other than exactly what happened in this case.
Right.
And when that's done, it goes before the prosecutor, so the assistant U.S. attorney, as well as the criminal defense team, and they're allowed to make objections or argue over it. Based on the way that the tone of this case has happened, I don't really see there being a lot of fight over what that background is. And the biggest thing to me is the amount of loss, because again, that will drive the guidelines. And it seems like they've kind of pretty much agreed to what the loss is going to be in this case.
And when you look at the timing of when this may come to pass, a sentencing date, we're looking at most likely the new year. Or at least past Christmas potentially. What do they have to consider in terms of the state charges? There were no charges per se, but there was a case being considered, and all this documentation that just happened with him agreeing to no longer have law enforcement certification, et cetera. Is any of that part of a presentation before the feds?
It will, and it actually have in the pre-sentencing report about that, what they've kind of
Okay.
decided to do. He's going to come out with a felony. So, even he wouldn't keep his credentials, but even if he did, he wouldn't be able to carry a firearm because he's going to give up that right. And again, that's maybe one of the importance of if a pardon comes in. Frankly, I've prosecuted a lot of people, and you would be maybe not surprised at how many were just concerned about if they would ever be able to own a gun again, whether that is to hunt or anything else. But all that goes into it. That will be in the pre-sentencing report. The judge will know about it. Again, if I'm defending him, I say, listen, Your Honor, he's come forward. He's come clean. He's worked out all these deals. He's trying to make amends. He was under an addiction. This addiction had drove him to do this. He needs help. He doesn't need to spend the rest of his life in prison, or a significant portion of time. And I think, again, he has a great criminal defense team, and that's what they're really setting up at this point.
This begs the question, though, why did the state feel the need to sort of cut? Because it seemed like it was almost a deal, right? That if you
Yeah.
give up this certification, we will not charge you in the state. But wasn't that a given? I mean, if he pleads guilty in federal court, he's not going to have credentials. So what was the point of that? Can you explain it?
I think there's, I think the brass tacks of it is political. The solicitor's office wants to be able to say they successfully prosecuted a public corruption case. And think about it. I know there's been a lot of chatter reading your social media and the comments on that. The level of people that think that the ex-sheriff is going to get by with this or somehow just go home scot-free. I think the solicitor rightly looked at that and said, we have to have our pound of flesh in a way, and be able to hang our hat on something that we also did. And they do that. Most people really aren't going to look past the fact that, well, they would have given up that anyway in the federal system. But I think it's their way to kind of save political capital on that. Frankly, it's probably the best use of judicial resources anyway. That's not something they would have prosecuted, quite frankly, anyway, once the feds got a hold of it.
Let me ask you another question. Let's take the craziest of crazy things and say that Chuck Wright, gets sentenced to whatever he gets sentenced to. Somehow he gets a presidential pardon. Does the state getting that state deal that says he loses all those things in terms of law enforcement, that still sticks, right?
It does. And quite frankly, it's one of those, yes, it still sticks. If I'm trying to be the devil's advocate, I would argue, what would it matter anyway? What's the likelihood of Chuck Wright's going to be reelected as sheriff of Spartanburg County? Granted, crazier things have happened in politics, but I agree. Even if he was pardoned, that would restore his firearms rights. But I think for all practical purposes, his career was over as soon as he decided to plead guilty or sign that deal initially a couple of months ago.
Got it. Thank you so much for your insight. It is always fascinating to talk to someone who understands the system, because none of us do. And we're just looking into this and wondering what happens here, And there are, like you've seen in my comments, there are people who, want him to go to jail for a crazy amount of time, or people who want him to walk free and we should just forgive him. So it runs the gamut of people who have opinions on this. But I respect the fact that at least we're talking to somebody who knows what he's talking about. Thank you.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I get it. As a citizen, the thing I would be most angry about is that a sheriff used that public trust to steal evidence that are drugs that were going to be destroyed. He stole money that was meant to benefit his own officers and his own officer family, broadly speaking. To me, that's where the anger is probably right. I think, though, if you take the badge off of Chuck Wright and, change his name and he's just an average citizen, this would not have been a federal indictment. It would have been handled in the state system. He would have gotten probation and walked. And that's just, frankly, probably what would have happened.
Interesting. More great perspective. Todd, thank you as
Right.
always. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
When we come back today, I know you may not, you kind of drag your feet going into Christmas this early. We're not even at Thanksgiving. But when we come back, Santa Shop, let's talk about it. Welcome back into Off Air with Amy. Thanks for watching today. You know, I've got someone who is kind of a Santa's elf of sorts. She is the one finagling all the details, getting all the vendors in place, making sure that everything goes off just right for this year's Santa Shop. It is a huge fundraiser for the Junior League. In fact, last year, they gave teachers $20,000 as a result of this really fun family event that's happening in Spartanburg very soon. Let's hear from our mystery elf.
My favorite time of the year. I know a lot of people, Halloween passes and they're like, no, it's too soon. But I love to get to Christmas right away. I don't have my decorations out yet, but I'm thinking about it. So let's talk about Santa Shop is back.
It's my favorite. I've been involved with it for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, Santa Shop, I will do it forever. It's my absolute favorite thing to do. And my mother was also a teacher, so it really resonates with me, the fact that the money that we raise at Santa Shop goes back into our community projects and directly stays with our teachers in Spartanburg County.
That is so cool. Well, let's talk about all the things, right? How many vendors? How overwhelming will it be? It's going to be great, right?
Oh, it's going to be so great. Right now we have 55 vendors and
Wow.
we are full. We're expecting, we don't know how many people are going to be there, but I think it's going to be a really good turnout. People are going to be able to see us all over Spartanburg County starting on Friday.
That's great. And let's talk about how the events roll out. Because, right, isn't it kind of fun on Friday, a little special, extra fun time?
Yeah, so on Friday and Saturday we're 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then on Sunday we're 12 to 5. But on Saturday all day from 9 until 2 we have our Cookies with Santa, which
Okay.
is really special. Santa comes, he reads a book to the kids, and they get a photo with him, and then they get to do a little craft and decorate cookies. I mean, what kid doesn't like cookies?
Yeah, I don't know any, actually.
I know. I couldn't name one.
And so are these events ticketed, and do they sell out quick? I mean, do people need to jump on this?
Yeah, so the Cookies with Santa event does, when it's sold out, it's done. And then our tickets for Santa Shop right now until November 13th, they're on sale for $13 let's fix that. They are on sale for $5 online or with a league member. And then
Okay.
at the door, starting on Friday morning, they will be on sale for $10.
Okay. So if you get your tickets early, you always save a little bit, right? Which is always a good.
Yes, you always save a little bit, and that's really nice. We've been selling them since the beginning of September,
Wow.
and they'll be available online until the evening of the 13th.
And what's your favorite thing about it? I mean, I just love starting to get into that holiday mindset of preparing, because we're all hosting people, finding the right gifts for people, and that takes time, right? So if you start early, you take the stress off a little bit.
Exactly. I love everything about it. I love walking around and talking to our guests and talking to our merchants and just getting a feel of how everything is playing out throughout the weekend. And I just love how it all comes together. We have our big tree in the middle, and there's trees everywhere, honestly. But I just love the decorations and the Christmas music playing. It's just such a special experience that, we get to have right here.
And it's all at the Memorial Auditorium? Is that where it is?
Yes, everything is at Spartanburg Memorial Auditorium, and our Cookies with Santa is there as well.
Nice.
So yeah.
Very exciting. I think over the years I've met cool situations, like groups of adults who all were in high school together, and they use Santa Shop as their way to all get together and have a girls' day, or or families that everybody's back in town or getting close to being back in town, and let's get together and figure out what we're doing and buy gifts. So it's really a lot of ways to use it to your advantage.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Megan.
It's really nice. I love it.
I love it too, and I'm glad it goes to a good cause, because that's always a nice thing to know that at the end of the day, you're doing something good for the community.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching Off Air with Amy. I'll, of course, see you very soon on the news, and, of course, back here for another episode next week.
1,000 people are in the shelter.
Fell through a house on Mars.
There's something comforting about experience.
Monday, we have breaking news in Greenville County.
It prepares you, makes you wiser, ready for anything. That's why 3 decades later, I still love to keep you informed. Your trust is everything.
Don't miss Amy Wood on 7 News. Weeknights at 4, 5, and 6 p.m.